Name one hero who was happy. You can't. I can't. I know. They never let you be famous and happy. I'll tell you a secret. Tell me. I'm going to be the first. He took my palm and held it to his. Swear it. Why me? Because you're the reason. Swear it. I swear it, I said, lost in the high color of his cheeks, the flame in his eyes. I swear it, he echoed. We sat like that a moment, hands touching. He grinned.
I'm not the biggest enthusiast when it comes to ancient literature, and as entertaining as Shakespeare is when it's performed, I don't ever think to myself, wow, I'd love to pick up Romeo and Juliet when I'm looking for a good read. I also don't know many who would, and despite how literate we are as a generation on the internet, and that classic literature does have its own fan base, you'll find a vast majority of Gen Z holds no interest in it. So, if you were to tell me 5 years ago that one of the most popular books on the internet was a retelling of Homer's The Iliad, it's not that I wouldn't believe you. My question would be, how? The Iliad is an ancient poem about the last few days of the Trojan War, a 10-year siege on the city of Troy by a coalition of Mycenaean Greeks for Helen, the wife of one of the Greek kings Menelaus, who was either taken or seduced by the Trojan prince of Paris. It's an epic about kings and gods who've taken sides in the war, and the leader of the coalition, Agamemnon, and the Aristos Achaean, the greatest warrior of the Greeks, Achilles. It's long, boring, and contains pages upon pages of too much detail of single battles. Homer truly takes his time in describing the deaths of just about every single man on the battlefield, and while it does portray the horrors of war, after reading it 3,000 times over and over again, it gets boring really fast. It's all men and glory and war. Heck, maybe it's too much for my modern feminine mind to comprehend, but at the end of the day, it doesn't hold much popularity amongst the peers of my age. As part of the literary canon, I feel like the Iliad is a perfect example of the canon's current state. Long, repetitive, boring, and ancient. But I'm not here to talk about the Iliad. It's been talked about enough. I'm here to talk about The Song of Achilles. The Song of Achilles is a novel written and published by Madeline Miller back in 2011. Though published over a decade ago, it gained popularity online through TikTok during the pandemic, and it was only met with widespread praise and success, selling over 2 million copies worldwide. And all you can wonder is, why? Why and how did a book about an ancient piece of text about a 10-year-long war become so popular amongst a generation who finds it anything but boring? That's because the Song of Achilles brings forward what the ancient text of the Iliad did not: humanity. The love between its characters, specifically that of Patroclus and Achilles. When you think of the Iliad, what comes to mind? For me, it was always war, spears, men, Troy, blood, and spears thrown into skulls. When I think of the Song of Achilles, it's very different. I think of summer skies and beaches, of tenderness, of passion. I think of broken hearts. I think of life. A far cry from what I think of the Iliad. This is because the Song of Achilles is told through the perspective of Patroclus. He narrates the story himself and the life of Achilles and Patroclus before the war, and how their lives were affected by it. The book starts with Patroclus as a boy. He is a prince who is exiled from his own kingdom after accidentally killing another boy. He is sent to the kingdom of Phthia, where he meets another young prince, Achilles, son of King Peleus and goddess mother Thetis. Patroclus speaks of what we do not see of Achilles in the Iliad. Their moments of boyhood, laughter, and games. Achilles, who would play the lyre. Achilles, who was kind. Achilles, who knew no bloodshed, who would be gentle to every living being that he saw. A mischievous Achilles, an Achilles before he knew what it meant to take a life. It's beautiful. What Patroclus tells is a story of loving Achilles. We get moments of admiration, of heart, of pure bliss when he is with him. It is something that we do not get in the Iliad, an understanding of who these people were before the war began, and that makes the war itself all the more impactful. The Song of Achilles is not without its violence. There are the sieges, villages raided, treasures and spoils stolen, families split apart and slain. While the women and girls are spared, they're taken back to the camp to be exploited as slaves by the Greeks. Patroclus convinces Achilles to take the first woman so that she will be protected by them and not taken advantage of. We see that even during the time of war, it is always still Patroclus and Achilles. The way Patroclus cares for Achilles, is in awe of who he is worried for him, feels pride for him. The way he sees the Achilles he once knew slowly slip away and become a man who kills, who falls into the glory of what war is and loses sight of what he began fighting for in the first place. At the end of the day, it's the same old ancient story, the Greek tragedy of the Iliad, where both Patroclus and Achilles die in the end. But it is more, so much more, because the Song of Achilles does more than give love to the story of the Iliad, but because it shows the story through a lens that gives readers something to connect to. We as humans do not connect with violence and war, despite how mired we are with it, but instead we connect with love, with small moments of joy, with the things we all know in our lives, because the Song of Achilles is so full of them. Readers are pulled into the story and feel all the more hurt when the violence and pain do begin. The Iliad is a detached, impersonal retelling of an ancient battle, while the Song of Achilles is a personal recount of the life of a person, not a king or god. Madeline Miller says it best in this clip of an interview.
Part of what I was really interested in was that even though it's set in this epic world and Achilles has this grand destiny, Patroclus himself is not an epic person. He's really an ordinary person. And how ordinary people, even though they feel like they have no power in this larger grand world, that they can still make really important choices to try and make the world a better place.
This is why I believe that the Song of Achilles should be introduced to the literary canon, because it is a modern retelling of a piece of literature people can connect to, and can also be a gateway of interest in classic literature. I know I said I found the Iliad boring and repetitive, but because of the Song of Achilles, I found myself reading the original piece and actually being interested once I was able to build my own understanding of the war for Troy, and not because a teacher forced me to read it. Not to mention, the Song of Achilles provides an amazingly well-written story of queer men where there is a lack of representation in canon media. It is not fetishized or written for a specific audience of queer or straight people. It simply tells the story of two boys who fell in love, who grew together into men, and it portrays it with such a poignance and grace. Achilles and Patroclus' relationship does not exist in the narrative for the purpose of representation, but they are well represented because their relationship serves the narrative, unlike many mainstream queer media made by straight people today for political correctness. The Song of Achilles is a beautiful story that combines classic literature with modern ideals and turns it into a piece of media that anyone with a love for Greek mythology or simply good love stories can enjoy. A story that can be taught not just for its historical relevance, but also for the real human memories that can be so genuine in any era and in any piece of media.
Her mouth tightens. Have you no more memories? I am made of memories. In the darkness, two shadows, reaching through the hopeless, heavy dusk. Their hands meet, and light spills in a flood like 100 golden urns pouring out of the sun.